At 6:04 in the evening on June 24, 2026, a woman named Maria Alejandra was inside her apartment in Caracas when her phone buzzed with an earthquake alert. She had maybe 2 seconds before the walls cracked open around her. She forced the door, and then 39 seconds after the first earthquake ended, the second one hit, and it was bigger. When we went downstairs, she told reporters, it looked like something out of a horror movie. What struck Venezuela that evening was not one earthquake followed by aftershocks. It was 2 major earthquakes, a magnitude 7.2 and a magnitude 7.5, separated by less than a minute, rupturing different segments of the same fault system in a sequence so rapid that structures weakened by the first had no time to be evacuated before the second arrived. The USGS calls this a doublet. And what this doublet did to the coastal cities of northern Venezuela is something that will take years to fully account for. As of this video, more than 1,430 confirmed dead, over 68,900 missing. The USGS's own modeling system placed a 44% probability on the final death toll exceeding 10,000. That is not the number confirmed. That is the number they're still counting. To understand why this happened, you need to understand where Caracas sits on this planet and what has been building beneath it for longer than the country has existed. Northern Venezuela sits directly on the boundary between the Caribbean plate and the South American plate. But unlike the subduction zones of the Pacific Rim, where one plate dives beneath another, this boundary operates differently. Here, the Caribbean plate doesn't sink, it slides eastward at roughly 20 millimeters per year, grinding horizontally past South America along a network of massive strike-slip faults. The principal structure in that network is the Bocano-San Sebastian-El Pilar fault system, a 1,300-kilometer fault running directly beneath some of the most densely populated land in Venezuela. Scientists have compared it structurally to California's San Andreas Fault. Same movement type, same horizontal grinding, same capacity for catastrophic shallow rupture. Caracas, a city of more than 3 million people, sits in a deep sedimentary basin carved into the mountains just south of the Caribbean coast. That basin matters. Loose sediment amplifies seismic waves the way a bowl of water amplifies ripples. A geophysicist from UC San Diego was unequivocal about it. The damage was so extensive, he said, because Venezuela lies in a massive strike-slip fault zone, and Caracas sits in a natural amplifier directly above it. Scientists had been watching this system. A research team presented findings at a European Space Agency conference just days before June 24th. Their calculations showed the San Sebastian fault had reached the threshold for a magnitude 7.1 earthquake. The rupture came. It exceeded their projection, and it came in 2 pieces. Here is what happened beneath the surface at 6:04 p.m. The first rupture, the magnitude 7.2, initiated along a locked segment of the San Sebastian Fault near Yumare at a depth of 20 kilometers. A strike-slip event of this size doesn't occur at a point. It occurs across a rupture zone roughly 150 kilometers long and 20 kilometers wide, an area of fault larger than Rhode Island, unzipping in seconds. The energy reached the surface, buildings shook, walls cracked, and 39 seconds later, the second rupture began. This is what seismologists call stress transfer. When the first segment slips, it doesn't simply release energy, it redistributes it onto adjacent segments. One neighboring locked section of the fault, already under enormous strain, received that stress pulse at the exact moment that the dynamic waves of the 7.2 were passing through it. The combination pushed it past its breaking point. The magnitude 7.5 initiated, shallower than the first, at only 10 kilometers beneath the surface. Depth matters more than almost anything else in seismic destruction. At 10 kilometers, the energy has almost no distance to attenuate before it reaches the ground. What might have been damaging at greater depth became, at 10 kilometers, something survivors described as the planet being hit from outside. Seismologist Germán Prieto at the National University of Colombia called the 39-second gap exceptional. Most doublet sequences, like the 2023 Kahramanmaraş disaster in Turkey, are separated by hours or days. Those hours give people time to move. 39 seconds gives no one anything. La Guaira received the worst of it. This city of 160,000 people sits in a narrow strip between the mountains and the sea, a geography with no escape route and no room for debris to spread. When the shaking stopped, more than 1,400 buildings had been destroyed or severely damaged. The main international airport, Simón Bolívar International, sustained catastrophic structural damage. All flights were canceled. By the following morning, residents were digging with their hands. Not heavy equipment, their hands. The city faced a critical shortage of machinery, and government response was severely delayed. At the José María Vargas Hospital, the injured overwhelmed every available space. Patients were treated in the parking lot. In Caracas, buildings collapsed in Los Palos Grandes. Gas supply to the city was ordered shut off. The metro was suspended. Caracas's stock exchange was converted into a rescue coordination center. The country declared a nationwide state of emergency, and then the information blackout made everything worse. Venezuela already blocks more than 200 websites, including major news outlets and social media platforms. After the earthquake, destroyed telecommunications infrastructure and existing government restrictions prevented survivors from reaching family members. People posted digital flyers of their missing relatives on WhatsApp and Facebook, searching for loved ones the way people once stapled photographs to telephone poles. The United Nations had to formally appeal for the restrictions to be lifted. Now here is the science that makes this disaster more than a tragedy. It makes it a warning. A doublet earthquake is defined as two events of similar magnitude, close in time, close in location. What makes Venezuela exceptional is how different the two ruptures appear to have been. USGS waveform analysis suggests the 7.2 and the 7.5 likely originated from different fault segments with different rupture styles. Most earthquake sequences follow what geologists call Both's law. The largest aftershock is typically about 1.2 magnitude units smaller than the main shock. A magnitude 7.5 should have produced aftershocks around 6.3. Instead, the first event was 7.2, the second was 7.5. The aftershock was larger than the initial rupture. The mechanism: the first rupture sent seismic waves outward while simultaneously redistributing static stress onto adjacent fault segments. One of those segments, already locked under centuries of accumulated strain, received that stress pulse exactly as the dynamic waves of the 7.2 were passing through it. Think of it like a row of dominoes arranged in a ring. Knock over one, and the wave it sends around triggers the next before the first has even finished falling. The human scale of this disaster is almost impossible to hold in your mind all at once. 68,900 missing. That is the entire population of Burlington, Vermont, every single person in an American mid-sized city, unaccounted for in the days after a single evening. The confirmed dead represent every seat in approximately 5 sold-out Broadway theaters, and that number was still rising at the time this script was written, with rescue teams reporting hundreds, possibly thousands, still buried in areas not yet reached. Venezuela was already in a prolonged humanitarian crisis before June 24th. 7 million people had emigrated since 2015. The health system was operating far below capacity. Construction had gone decades without meaningful seismic code enforcement. The government had restricted information access before the first earthquake ever struck. The disaster didn't create these conditions. It landed on top of them. One rescue volunteer named Sebastian Arias, moving between collapsed buildings across multiple neighborhoods, told reporters, "In a place like this, you just feel shocked. I don't even feel like taking photos." That phrase, "a matter of seconds," appears in every account from that night. Not minutes, seconds, 39 of them, between one catastrophe and the one that compounded it. Scientists are now watching several things very carefully. In the week following the main shock, USGS forecasters placed the probability of a magnitude 6.0 or larger aftershock at 40%. A magnitude 5.0 or larger was described as near certain. For a population sleeping in streets and in the rubble of their own neighborhoods, those follow-on shocks represent an ongoing danger to structures already compromised beyond what visual inspection can reliably detect. But there is something else they are watching: The El Pilar Fault, the eastern segment of the same plate boundary system, did not rupture on June 24th. Historical records show this system has produced major events in 1641, 1766, 1812, 1900, and 1967. The doublet ruptured the San Sebastian segment. The El Pilar segment, running along Venezuela's northeastern coast, still carries the strain it has been accumulating for decades. The stress changes from the June 24th doublet may have altered the loading state of that segment. Scientists are processing satellite data now. The models are running. The researchers who watched the San Sebastian fault reach its calculated threshold, and then watched it exceed that threshold in 39 seconds, are not looking away from the El Pilar. The earthquake Venezuela didn't expect happened in less than a minute. The one that may follow it has been building, 1 millimeter at a time, in the fault that hasn't moved yet. Subscribe to stay ahead of what's coming.